I'm Jake Hutchcraft. I'm a massage therapist. I've got a lot of experience and research and understanding the human body, the anatomy and stuff behind it. So I've been a massage therapist now for almost 3 years. It was before she became professional, but she had been on the amateur circuit for, a year or two probably at that point, competing, seriously. I knew her, but I knew her before that. I just wasn't a massage therapist at that point. So I watched her grow and, develop along that path. As soon as I got out of massage school, it was probably 6 months out, I was working with her at a restaurant at Copeland's at this point, and I swear I had worked with her somewhere before. I knew her before Copeland's, but at that point, she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm still doing this." I was like, "Well, just to remind you and let you know I'm a massage therapist." She's like, "I completely forgot," and so at that point she started coming to me, and that was, probably a year or so, a couple years before she became professional. So the dysfunction is really, you look at the musculoskeletal system, and how it works and the mechanics of everything. So you've got all the muscle fibers and all the myofascial interactions. So the fascia, so if you eat a steak, the red part of the steak, the delicious part of the steak,
right,
that's muscle. Then if you just pull that steak apart, you get these meninges almost looking things, these like spider webs in between. But that's connective tissue. That connective tissue is fascia. So the fascia is absolutely everywhere in our body. It creates the tendons, the ligaments, everything, it binds the muscles together. It creates sacs around our organs. It binds absolutely everything together. But it grows. That's exactly what it is. It is tissue meant to connect to other things. So you can think of it like Velcro ivy, same analogy. And if you have these tissues that get bound up, they get inflamed, they get caught on things, those myofascial adhesions start to suture in and become more fibrotic, and they suture down on, and constrict communication, blood flow, and everything into those tissues. So at the point that I met her, she had had years and years of abuse into this system. And then with that abuse, you also have to deal with muscle memory, postural body patterns. Our body is a system of economy. It tries to carve out one neural pathway, one pathway that goes to the muscles, and then as long as it doesn't deteriorate, then they just keep trying to use that one. And so it's just like with training, martial arts, drawing, everything that you do, that you try to do, writing, you do it more and more so that you develop that skill, so that you don't have to sit down and be like, okay, what am I going to do now? So you just get in there and you start doing it. Your brain likes to operate on minimal input from us. As much as we like to think we drive our machine, we don't. So she had years of abuse into the system that had carved out all of these things. So it began with trying to unlock that, and now she's changed, paradigms and tried to do things to help augment how much muscle she has, to put more on her frame, to build things up, to build things correctly, to build symmetry through her body, but she's also tried to build strength now as well. So all these things, she's doing these new things that are creating, new stresses on her body. So it's not broken, but it's definitely highly used. And so with highly used, you have to have high maintenance. If you drive your car more, you have to change your oil more frequently, things like that. So her body is definitely in need of constant attention and rehabilitation. But that's just because of how hard she works and how thoroughly relentless she is in her pursuit of her career and her craft and sport right now. Yeah, she's come to me, and at the beginning of each one of my appointments anyways, I ask, tell me about what's going on with you, because I prefer to have either a problem to work on or an idea of what tensions or problems may be presenting for that person. So I'll ask her. And so she, especially over the years, has gotten very good. Like, she's like, I need this work done, this is going on, this is going on. So she tells me what it is that's bothering her at that time. And then I'll ask about, what movement she's been doing. And, was this from one of her pulls? Was this because of something she did at work? Was this because of, especially with her like posing and things, there's a lot of postural weird things that you have to do to hit, poses. And it creates weird stresses inside those joints. And it'll do cross patterns because one leg's flexed, the other one's, extended. So with that, she gives me a pretty precise what's going on, but she's come to me before with like a football size, not really, probably more like a softball size lump in, some of the tissues. And she's like, I need this fixed. And then she's come to me with problems that presented in shows. She said, this pose took me from this position to this position. They said, I've got to fix this. We need to fix this. How do I fix this? And so I would look at, okay, so what position are they trying to get the body into? I'm like, okay, so that means these muscles need to tense. So why aren't these muscles tensing? Why do you not do that in that pose where you're trying to do this? Well, we need to figure out how to release that muscle structure. And if those ones are tight all the time because they're pulling things forward and we need them to relax, I'm going to go in there and try to relax that. So I've had situations where she had very specific goals in mind, things that she needed taken care of, whether it be discomfort or professional ability. But she's come into me with things that were locked up pretty bad, and it took several sessions, to get it cleared back down to where it was regular. So there have definitely been times where she's come in and she's been far more in need of specific mechanical issues, released, as opposed to just, I'm feeling good now. Mm-hmm. And there have also been times where she's come in and she's just been very stressed, it's been hard, and you can't, when her body's already in a super stressed state, you can't just stress on top of that. Go in there, start tearing those myofascial adhesions, breaking things up, flooding the lymph nodes and all of that system with just more damage and more tissue, trauma. So there have been times where I'm like, listen, we're gonna do a chill one today. You just need to calm down. You just need to. And so there was a lot less work, but that was the work. The work was bring her back into parasympathetic override, as opposed to being, fight or flight, go, go, go. Everything's charged up. It's not necessarily hazardous to your health so much as it can be hazardous to the tensions, and if you overly tighten that stuff. So, I guess it can be on a long enough timeline, not necessarily in her case, but, I've had people that come to me and they're like, I had a car accident when I was like 16 years old. And ever since then, I can't really lift my shoulder past here. I've talked to the doctors and I hear this so often. There's so much misinformation out there from the medical society because of Western influence over looking at the body system as a whole and not just saying, well, you need a cortisone shot there. Do we really need a cortisone shot there, or do we need to find out why that joint's inflamed? It's inflamed because this muscle's pulling here. That's creating rotational force every time they try to lift things. And then there's muscle. Like, if you can get into that, then you can fix that problem. Or not, if there's damage that's already been there. So if you have a socket, a window, any joint, and over the years, it's supposed to be, going through this full range of motion, but you just stop using the whole thing. Like, every time I lift my shoulder, my feet hurts. Well, then this stuff never gets flexed, never gets moved. And so eventually that joint there that's supposed to have fresh tissue movement, fresh blood flow, current articulation, freedom of movement through all that stuff, because really the joints, the muscles, the bones, the muscles are just there to move our bones. That's it. Our skeletal system is moved by our muscles. Muscles can only contract. So we have one muscle on one side of the bone to pull it one way, muscles on the other side of the bone to pull it the other way. That's all muscles do. So all day long, they're just moving past one another. Well, that's the same thing as somebody rubbing your skin. All of your muscles moving past one another, massage and break and keep all of that movement, free. So before, we were sitting at desks all day, we were moving around, we were crouched down, we were running after animals, all of that stuff. All those joint movements stayed opened up. So since we've taken a lot of the mobility out of our lives, introducing mechanical forces through massage replicates that. So if you have a desk job, like, I don't work out, it doesn't matter. You sit all day with the same muscles tight everywhere, all the time. those muscles need to be relaxed. If you're not doing it through movement, exercise, going out and doing basically parkour, because it's not just I'm doing biceps curls. You have to move your entire skeleton. And so without doing that, you can have spots that start to form up and they bind things together. And over years, you can have necrosis inside those tissues. You can have arthritis start to develop inside joints because the joints are now pulling in a weird way. That smooth, shiny hyaline cartilage that's at the end of those bones that's supposed to just run freely past one another is now bound up. And it now has rocks in it. Those little rocks start to tear things up. It starts to tear that cartilage, and then that joint starts to deteriorate. And then you have a problem. Then you have something that, like, now that joint's gone. There's pieces of cartilage that are gone out of that joint. Now the joint has to be replaced, to get back to a certain point. Now you can catch that earlier, and when it's not, and just inflamed as opposed to torn. And at that point, you can start to loosen those things up. So if you leave things long enough, it definitely creates an impairment to your health, the health of the joints especially. But with her, she's still very young and hasn't done things. But I've had clients that come in and I spend 15 minutes working on a shoulder that they said they could, lift up, and the doctor said the only thing that we can do is a cortisone shot. And by the end of the session, where I've put minimal effort into it, just moving things around, taking their arm, moving it along, finding out where it doesn't want to move past, and then pressing into those areas, finding where the adhesion is, loosening it up, opening those tissues up. By the end of the session, their arm's straight up in the air. I haven't done this in 16 years. I'm like, you don't need surgery. You need to pay attention to it. If it hurts, don't avoid it. Find out why it hurts. Open it up, press into it, look into it. Carolyn, you're doing awesome. You're continuing to take care of your body the right way. You're continuing to push yourself to further your career. I'm so proud of what you're doing. You're awesome. Keep it up. And I'll see you later today.
There you go. All right.